friends. Welcome back to Pardon the Mess. I'm your host, Courtney DeFeo, and I love my job. Have I said that lately? Like, I literally get to turn on my microphone and talk to the most fascinating people, and we'll get to how awesome Grace Valentine is, but I just loved it so much, and it blessed me. In fact, episode's all about friendships and our daughters and just friendships as women. And I was having one of those weeks where I was like, on social media too much and saw a couple things. And I was like, I'm kind of feeling rejected here, and had to kind of circle my heart about like, oh no, I already really do have a community of vibrant friends, and just really kind of wrestled through it as a 48-year-old. So I know it's hard for your daughters to process making and keeping friends. And I know it's even harder as a mom to watch when they're rejected or when they're hurt, but she gives so many amazing pieces of advice here, and they're all biblical and they're all so relatable. And so I pray that you'll listen for yourself, listen with your daughter, and even bring a notepad, because there's things that I kind of wanted to write down everything she said. So thankfully we can go back and replay this. But before we get to Grace, I want to tell you about a new program I think we need to start. And I'm hoping this isn't like an existing military award like the Purple Heart, where I'm like minimizing the work that they do. But I think we need to have the Pardon the Mess Gold Star Mom Awards. And I feel like it needs to be something we get together like once a year and we give out awards for things like organizing your pin drawer. Or maybe you took a disposable camera like I did that's been sitting in a basket for 2 weeks. I took them to CVS. And when I walked out of there, I literally was like, could somebody blow the confetti? Could someone bring me an award? Bring me the Oscar, the Academy Award, because I have just crushed an item off my to-do list. And maybe this is just an ADD thing, or maybe it's a mom thing. Do your girls come home or your kids come home like, Mom, what did you do today? And you're like, I don't know. Like I did some chores and some errands over and over and over again. But my Gold Star Award that I would like to give myself today is that I parallel parked, and I am not very good. I know this is shocking information to you. I'm not very good at parallel parking. In fact, my dad, when I was at Auburn, said, can you just stop doing that? Because he loved to wash cars, and I would bring home my car with just shredded wheels, just like metal shredded. And he's like, do me a favor, stop parallel parking. And so I have that in my mind as I attempt it. And then this particular time, it was yesterday when I was parking, there were windows at the hair salon. So I was like, not only do I know that I'm terrible at this, people are watching. And so I was like, I'm going to do this because I'm running late and I need this spot. And so I think it was the new backup camera on my car, but I just crushed it first try, and literally was so proud of myself. I was like looking around for people to run out of buildings clapping. And so on this day, I would like to award myself a Gold Star Award by Pardon the Mess. Courtney, you deserve one. Thank you very much for getting into your parallel parking space. And so, do you have one? Send me some examples, and send me like, do you like this? Do you think we should have an award ceremony? I do. I think we're awesome. So back to our episode, y'all. I don't know how to say it a million times. You're going to love her. Grace is an author, speaker. In fact, she just had a huge event in Dallas to launch her new book, The Better Friend, and it was on Tuesday night. And about the only thing that could have kept me away from Grace's event, because it was like 6 minutes down the road, is Dancing with the Stars. I literally looked up and was like, oh my gosh, how do we have a conflict on that night? So me and the fam were at Dancing with the Stars, which is a passion thing of ours. But if you haven't followed her on Instagram, or your daughters don't follow her, go on over there, because she's a young 20-something-year-old that's relatable. She's biblical. She speaks truth. And she has so many great illustrations and stories, like modern day parables, that you're like, I can get behind that. Like, for example, she talks about at a wedding, you want your bridesmaids and you want your dance floor. So you want those friends that you can hold close and that will be loyal and stand with you. But you also want your friends that are more like acquaintances, that are there to celebrate you, but they're not your innermost circle. And so just kind of hang on to all the illustrations she gets today. And then I also just want to encourage you, if you're a mom and you've got a daughter that is really struggling with friendships, like, you are not alone, and she is not alone. There's nothing wrong with her. This is one of those things, as Andy Stanley says, it's not a problem to solve. It's a tension to manage. And I wish at first grade, third grade, sixth grade, we could just wave this one and I could give you a formula to say, here's how you help girls navigate friendships with excellence and perfection. It just doesn't happen. Even at 48, I'm having moments of where I'm like, shouldn't have got on social media today because I'm feeling super rejected. And I have to process that through as an adult to go like, Lord, what do you want to say to me? Do I already have good friends? How can I show up as a friend? And on and on. So just be encouraged. You're not alone in this. And Grace is going to give you tremendous encouragement in the area of friendships. Enjoy. Grace Valentine, how are you?
Hi, I'm so excited to be back, Courtney. Thank you for having me again.
Welcome. I don't always look at analytics, but every time I ever go on to look at which shows people really enjoyed, yours is like top 5 always. People love you.
I'm so honored. Thank you, people.
I know. And that's like millions of downloads, and you're right up there. So that's not billions of downloads. That's a exaggeration, not on yours, but for the podcast.
Billions.
Billions. Yeah, billions of people have turned in. But how are you? What's happening over in Atlanta?
Great. Since I've been on, I've moved to Atlanta. I'm now 28. So I guess it's been like 2 years since I've been on.
That's right.
I feel like I kind of blew up my life a little. When after I turned 27, I felt called to move to Atlanta. I thought it'd be easier also for my career because I was traveling to a lot of college towns. Yeah. And turns out that was God's voice. I'm sure you've had those moments. You're like, is God calling you to move to Atlanta, or did I just watch the real Desperate Housewives of Atlanta? I was like trying to figure out if it was God's voice or not. And I got confirmation once I got here. So it definitely was God, and it's been great.
Good. We'll have to get together. I'm from there, so I'm there all the time. But it's hard because I sneak back into town. I'm on a board that a nonprofit that meets there, but all of my family's there. So I have to kind of come in under the cover of darkness and see so many people. But I would love to have coffee with you one day. I will say, and I've told you this before, I love your Instagram. Like everything you write, I'm like, amen. And my kids are like, can you stop forwarding me Grace Valentine? Because I read them too.
That's so sweet. A lot of moms tell me that.
I love it. Okay, so are you still speaking to colleges and loving that?
Yes, I have such a heart for that brokenness you feel when you're, 20, you thought you knew everything at 17, then you're 20 years old in a sorority, you made a mistake when you were drunk, you're crying about a guy you're not even dating. Like there's like such a heart that I have for there. I also like have such a heart now for Post-Grad, that I've been in it for a while. I'm such a believer that, you're supposed to be who you needed when you were younger. And so that's now I've like with my purpose retreat coming up too, which is a retreat for college girls and Post-Grad. That is also something that is super fun for me to be able to meet with girls in that navigating that whole new tension of moving to a new city or moving back home, trying to find friendships, trying to deal with a job that you don't love because it's your first job and no one's first job is their dream job like they always thought it would be. And that's just kind of a little bit what I care about, I feel like lately.
Well, what I love that you do is like, you don't just sit with them in the struggle and complain and be like, this is the worst, but you do meet them there to say like, you are not the only one wondering if you went to the right college. You are not the only one wondering if you'll ever get married. And then you give them hope in Jesus and you give them some actual things they can do, which I think is so tricky. It's like bring the vulnerability, bring the struggle, but not sitting there where it's just like a big complaining fest. But so how do you feel like, I feel like moms and daughters kind of tune into your stuff. What do you hear from other moms like me that are like, thank you for saying the hard things?
Yeah, it's so sweet because I think a lot of times they're like, you're kind of saying what we're saying, but just in a different tone, Right. So, and that's my goal because the people who know their daughters the best, who give the best wisdom will always be the mothers. Like that is who is discipling them. And I'm not discipling these young women. They're the one who actually has to hear about Brian, the guy who's the KA, who sometimes leads her on and sometimes sexts her. They have to hear all about that. Like I get a DM about it, but it's not as like the detail that she hears on every day on her walk to class. And so it is such an honor when a mom's like, hey, you're saying what I've been trying to say, but it's in a different font. And that is the most helpful thing. And because sometimes you can say the same thing over and over again, but when someone else says it a little differently, it finally hits. And so and you almost need both. You need like the mom saying it in her perspective and then me saying it in that perspective. So it's honestly such a joy and encouragement. Even there was a mom in Atlanta named Amy who messaged me, was like, do you want a coffee? And she encouraged me. And encouragement from moms means even more than encouragement from the young woman because they're the ones who, it's like the heart of a mother is even, you love your daughter sometimes more than you love yourself, like you usually do. And so
for sure,
when they are so encouraged by it because they care so much for their daughter, it's like the most encouraging and best compliment I can get.
I love it. So I went to Auburn and my daughter's starting in Auburn this fall and she's 4th generation. And so I'm loving how I think I would graduated like last weekend. I'm like, so when I was rush chairman, and she's like, I feel like it may be different than when you were rush chairman. And so I'm having to like try not to relive her, but because she's going to the same school and I care about it so much, I'm like, she's catching me being like, Mom, stop talking. Like, just like, I care, but I'm a little outdated. So I'm glad you're bridging a gap between me and my daughter.
You have to remember, I mean, Ecclesiastes is nothing new under the sun. Like what has been will be again. So same heartbreak, same struggles, same loneliness. Maybe there's now social media involved, makes it a little different, but it's still the same issues. And so I even tell the younger generation that we forget that we need our mothers. We need the people who've gone before us because there's nothing new under the sun. This generation has Googled everything. Now they chat GBT. They're just like, hey, how do I kiss a boy on YouTube? They're never asking anyone those weird questions. But then when you're older, if you had to learn how to change a flat tire, you couldn't just look up a YouTube tutorial. You had to call someone older than you.
So true.
It's a lost art on this generation to realize, hey, if I'm going through Rush, I couldn't just watch a TikTok video of a girl going through Bama Rush. I had to actually talk to my mom who went through Rush or these other women from my area. And so I do think it's important for that generation to know, hey, it's different but the same. Things change in a lot of ways.
I'm quoting that the next time she rolls her eyes. I'm bringing out that Ecclesiastes.
Yes.
Like Grace Valentine
the Bible.
Use that Bible as a sword. Speaking of things that never change, friendships, I swear, this is an all play, all skate topic because I had a mom the other day pull me aside and was like, oh, my daughter in second grade only has eyes for one friend. And will that be dangerous? Should she branch out? And then you go all the way up through elementary, some heartbreaks to middle school, just really trying, high school, college, 48. It's always such a developing thing that girls really struggle with. And maybe if you've got a son listening, you're like, no, they struggle too. But specifically on girls, take me back to your friendship journey. So did you just always make friends all the ages of your life, or did you really struggle? What was kind of your growing up with friendships?
Yeah. No, middle school and high school, I was at first, I was the weird girl. I was very bullied. Those are things as you grow up. I even have where I talk about this in my new book where, you can get invited to all the sorority date parties, happy hours and everything, but you will still remember that middle school lunch table that left you out. That said, there's no room for you at the homecoming group. We're out of space. And it's not the Met Gala, it's homecoming in the suburbs, but there's suddenly no more room. There's a cutoff. And that forever taint your view on friendship, or it'll make you wiser. When you look back at those little heartbreaks, I'm sure a lot of us can think of those now, high school, middle school, college, when we got left out, when we didn't get a sorority bed. Those can make us kinder and wiser, or those can make us more bitter. And so I think especially for me in friendships, and then when I got to my 20s, I realized I was still holding so much bitterness. And I was kind of holding records of wrongs to my friend. And I call my book The Better Friend because honestly, as egotistical and horrible as it sounds, I struggle with always feeling like I was the better friend. I was like, I'm giving way more. These are one-sided friendships. I constantly give, and then I don't get invited, and I'm in my 20s and still upset about this. When will this change? And the whole point of my book was, okay, you have to learn how to love radically because Jesus was the better friend. You shouldn't feel pathetic when you were trying harder in friendships. You should be like, okay, that's Christ in me. Good for me. I am the one showing up. I would rather be that one than the one not showing up.
Correct.
But at the same time, you have to learn how to trust wisely and protect your heart and guard your heart and make sure you have people that you're on mission with and you're not begging to sit at a table that Jesus wasn't preparing for you. Wow. And so I think even as I got in my 20s, it was still that middle school girl being like, please, cool table, let me in. And I think that's how a lot of us women are with friendships, that we're constantly chasing these people who aren't even our friends. We're loving radically and not trusting wisely, or we think we're trusting wisely, but truly we're just holding records of wrongs. And so it's how do you balance both is what I've had to learn in my own life.
I think balance both, but I guess that's a discernment thing in the Holy Spirit to go, when do you get distance from someone that never will show up? That's we would use the word toxic because where do boundaries come into saying this is actually a detrimental friend, not a kind friend? I think that's tricky for us as moms to go okay, we've given that girl a chance. We've tried to lead with grace and love. But for the last 3 years, she's been consistently mean. Or maybe my kid's the one being mean.
Yeah.
So have you found that in your own life to go okay, I so agree with you. Lead with love. And I would rather be that person all day long. But have there been moments where you're I'm going to get some distance from this one? Have you cut people off? Is that a Jesus thing?
And I think, even in my book, friend breakups can be the most holy and hard thing you do. Walking away from someone who is causing you to even doubt your worth. And sometimes it's even just a compatibility issue. I know in Acts, there's a story of 2 men with Paul, and he and someone else who were great men were spreading the gospel, doing great things, and they had a disagreement. And they ended up splitting up right then and there, and they both went their separate ways. And that was the best thing for the church as a whole. It was the best thing for Jesus' name. It was the best thing for everyone, and they were doing their best and living their best life. And I look at so many friendships in my past where I kept holding on to it. And honestly, there was no villain in the story sometimes. Sometimes it was just 2 people who disagreed, who were not meant to be, who had to walk away so that we could live our best lives and walk in God's calling. Sometimes I did get, screwed by a friend or betrayed, or someone, starts dating my ex-boyfriend. I'm like, oh, now, that those things happen in the girl world, in the young woman world, and the woman world. When those things happen too, I think the way you love radically is, Romans 12, it says outdo them in love. Like always outdo them in love and honor them even when you're disappointed, even the way you talk about them. Find people you can trust that you can like vent and share your emotions, but make sure you're speaking still the spirit and not your mind. So you may still be reflecting, this is what happened. This is how this person hurt me, but I'm going to still seek to be gentle. I'm going to still honor their name in rooms they're not in, which is so hard to do because you want your truth to be told. But what good is that going to do for the body? Like, what good is that going to do? Like, some people just don't need to know. Some people need to know to care for you. And it is the best thing. It is kind to them for you to walk away to say, hey, like, I care about you, but what you did, like, did not make me feel good. And it's going to be better for me to walk away. I'll be praying for you from afar. That isn't a sin. Like, that may not be nice, but it's still kind. And I think we're not called to be nice in scripture. We're called to have kindness. And so nice is people pleasing and kindness is pointing them to the Lord.
Ooh, that's so good. I just want to so good. So one of the things I've had to talk my girls through is when you have a friend that you're taking a pause with versus writing off. And so we talk about is like, is this someone that you're going to love for a long time and y'all are just having a bump in the road? And I had that with some of my friends. It was like, we were both in an unhealthy spot and we kind of bumped into each other. And like you said, it wasn't right or wrong. We were just both not in a great spot. And when we bumped into each other, it just made a little storm, but that person was worth fighting for. And we are now amazing friends and back at it. But then there's some, like you said, that's like, we'll be best to separate. And so that can be something that if moms, you're listening, that is tricky to navigate for your kids and then let them navigate. And as we talk about on this podcast all the time, it's different than when they're in first grade than it is in fifth grade. And definitely when they're 18 and 16, they're making those decisions for themselves. You can give guidance. We can't decide who's sitting at what table as their senior year, as we'd wish. Let me read y'all her new book, The Better Friend, says 12 truths to shift from shallow and one-sided connections to vibrant friendships. And I love that. Amen. I would also say low maintenance friends are the goal for me. So tell me what a shallow friendship looks like over time. I made us some notes. I put one-sided. I have friends that just want popularity, friends that talk behind your back. What are some other shallow examples we can kind of go, I don't know if that one's the real deal.
Yeah. Well, and sometimes it depends on, so like Aristotle has this thing where he talks about that there's 3 like tiers of friendships: friendships of pleasure, friendship of convenience, and friendships of goodness. And it's normal and good for you to have these friends of convenience and friends of pleasure. And some of them have potential to be friends of goodness, which are like the ultimate best friends that bring good to your life. You share good, you care for each other. The friendship of pleasure might be like you have a hobby, might be Pilates. It might be like, hey, you go to the same church, but you don't talk about anything deep. You're like, hey, what's up? Like, oh, how's Sally doing? Friendship is convenience. The other PTA mom, your neighbor, that girl in dance class that like you have to see, even though you have dance as a pleasure, it's more of a convenient friend. Right. And so when I think about my shallow friendships, they are friends that like are sometimes are in those boxes of convenience or pleasure, but usually the ones that aren't pointing to the Lord at all. So the ones like I think in college, I had a lot of, and it was convenient or pleasure. We loved frat parties. And so we put on the crop tops. We'd have a pregame. Like those friends, like were pretty shallow. I don't think we ever hung out when the sun was shining, it was after dinner. Like those were very shallow friendships. And so
do you have a child who struggles with a specific subject, or do you have a child who's ahead and not getting challenged enough in the classroom? For either of those kids and anyone in between, you should go check out IXL Learning. IXL Learning is an online learning program that enriches your homeschool curriculum and your child's classroom learning. It offers practice in math, English, language arts, science, and social studies while adapting to each child, meeting them exactly where they are. Plus, IXL encourages students to be curious and empowers them to choose how to learn. And the best part is, IXL is so easy for parents. One site gets you all you need, and IXL customizes learning for each child and their needs. Everything on IXL is organized by grade, subject, topic, and subtopic, making it simple to find activities for the exact skills you are covering. And IXL offers instant feedback and explanations of new topics as kids use the program. So you can feel confident that your kids will gain an understanding of the skills they are learning. Make an impact on your child's learning by getting IXL now. And Pardon the Mess listeners can get an exclusive 20% off IXL membership when they sign up today at IXL.com/today. Visit IXL.com/today to get the most effective learning program out there at the best price. Did you know that we spend nearly a third of our lives in bed? That's a lot of time. So why not make every night's sleep the best it can be? Avocado Green Mattress is committed to providing mattresses that not only help you sleep better, but are also healthier for both you and the planet. Avocado mattresses are designed to provide exceptional comfort and support with options ranging from gentle firm to plush. I prefer a little plush, meeting diverse sleep needs and preferences. You can visit one of their retail stores or one of their premier retail partners to experience that comfort in person, or they even have a mattress quiz to see which mattress and comfort option is right for you. And Avocado is committed to sustainability. Their mattresses are made from organic, eco-friendly materials that are good for both you and the planet. Plus, their mattresses are built to last, so we can keep more mattresses out of the landfill. Head on over to avocadomattress.com today and save up to 10% on certified organic mattresses. Dream of better.
I don't talk to them anymore and I can't be shocked. I'm like, oh no, this is crazy. Shallow friendships can also be surrounded by gossip. Like they're the ones where you can't help but get together and the first thing you have to do is talk about everyone else. And if you constantly can't even talk about yourselves in a way that you could enjoy an hour and a half dinner, then you're probably not actually vibrant friendships. Like your foundation is gossip, and that doesn't make y'all like horrible people. Like it's a human sin, but at the same time, it makes the friendship a very shallow foundation.
Yeah. Yeah. How many do you think what is reasonable to have deep, vibrant friendships over time? I think for me, because I'm a people pleaser, and I have that woo in me and the strengths finders, like win others over. Like it's like a personal goal. I want everyone in the room to like me, and I want to win everybody over. I want everyone to like me. And then you go, I can't keep up with all these friends. Like I can't keep up with everybody. And that's typically not the goal. Like you can't go that deep and loyal. And like you said, Jesus-centered friendships with everybody you meet. It's just not practical. But I do find myself still all these years later being like, making sure people like me, which is just so silly. How many is not reasonable, you think?
And this is what I tell college girls. So this even goes for all ages. But I don't know if you remember that college welcome week. I'm sure you did at Auburn, where you're like, I'm about to meet my bridesmaids. Like, I'm about to meet my best friends. Like, they are somewhere among me. Like, isn't the first girl I take a picture with? And I think it's so important to have a community, not a clique. And when you kind of have that bridesmaids mentality, kind of like that second grader you said, who just wants that one friend. She's like, I want a best friend. That's all I need. Then you're going to have a clique and not community. So yes, you're called to have bridesmaids, but you also need a dance floor. Like you need to find the people in your life who may not know every detail and they're under low maintenance, that you don't know everything. You don't get to catch up, but you know that they would cheer for you in a covenant of marriage. They would cheer for you in so many other things in life. And so it's all about whatever you truly think like you could have as bridesmaids in your life, like in your 40s, in your 20s, and whatever it is. Like, do you think you could have maybe like 7 people pour into them? Well, some of us do. I seek individual relationships over cliques too. I think even as you get older, we dream of this like posse, but it's so much better if I can meet with them one-on-one. Like doing those group things are great in a small group setting, but when it comes to my true like deep one-on-one friendships, I need to be able to just hang out the one-on-one. For me, it's always been probably like 7 or 8, at the most. Yeah. And that's in a season of more singleness, like as in I'm dating, but I'm not married. Everything changes when you start having kids. And so, but those are the people who probably like know everything about me. And some of them don't even, I have to catch up still.
I love that.
And so, but finding your dance floor, I think is just as important though, as in having people who care to celebrate you and be there for you if something went wrong.
I think that is so good. And I love visual lessons. So I'm like, I'll be using that when you're brilliant, Grace. I just love how Jesus works through your mind. It's so cool. So do you follow Mel Robbins at all? She's like motivational speaker.
Yes, but she's killing it.
This week she shared something that was like, how do I find friends when, or how do I make friends when I need friends?
I saw this exact post.
I don't want to leave the house. I don't want to leave the house. So
you're like, my 2 friends also don't want to leave the house. So how will I find these friends if we both don't leave the house? No, I love it. That is so true. And it is, you do have to make yourself, you have to be awkward to find friendships. I remember when I moved to Atlanta, I also think we think loneliness is such a bad feeling. We're like, oh, it's horrible. The enemy is giving us loneliness. And sometimes the enemy will come and say, hey, you're lonely, to try to create a barrier between you and the people you do have. But when I moved to Atlanta, I was like, oh no, I'm lonely. Truth is, I was lonely. I didn't have anyone. I didn't have any friends yet. So that was a sign for me to like, hey, get your butt off the couch, stop watching Friends, and go make some friends. So loneliness can also be a good thing of, hey, I will have to go out there, or I'll have to invite someone and I don't have to pick up my house and pretend to be perfect, but I might have to, turn a good show, pop the popcorn out, you will never regret getting out the house or bringing someone into your house to seek friendships. Like it is uncomfortable and it's awkward and you'll feel like a 12-year-old again having a play date. but it makes you better.
I think that's huge. You put that in your book. It's like there's this myth that they just arrive, like great friends just show up. And that's not the way it goes. I remember I've moved twice. I moved to Orlando where you lived. And then I moved here to Texas. And you start over again like a child in these schools and you have to make mom friends. And then if you don't take they're not just sitting around they're kind, but they're not wanting to include the new girl all the time. So there would be seasons I would get lonely and go like, no one likes me. It's like, they just kind of forgot about me. It's not they didn't like me. So I had to say, hey, want to get coffee? Or hey, you want to sit together at the girls' soccer game today or whatever? But that can be super humbling and defeating. If, like you said, you just sit there and watch Friends and be like, what it says to you is I'm not likable. I'm not worthy of friends. When that's not the truth. We just have to get out there and remind people that we're alive.
That's the lie. And the truth is, there are going to be some people you meet. I'm sure this has happened to you when you moved to new cities. I remember I went on a dinner date with a girl and it was like, okay, so we're going to start. It was like not a compatibility friendship spark and we're trying, and we never talk to each other again. But there's some people who will not want to be your friends when you do that. And you can either let that dishearten you or you'll be glad and be like, okay, there must be someone else out there. So I'd encourage anyone who's going through that. There's nothing worse than when you finally put yourself out there and then you feel like someone rejects you. Anytime, whether that's dating, whether that's friendship, but you have to be okay with the rejection and trust that it really is as cheesy as we've always heard it, redirection, that you're going to find people. You have to keep going and you have to assume the best and be like, hey, maybe that person was going through a bad season and they're hardened about friendships or new people. They've a lot on their plate, but I'm going to find people who are willing and have room at their table for me. Yeah.
You brought up Jesus being in the middle, and I think back to right when I got out of college and Ron and I were dating, married, something like that. But there's a group of people we had a blast, it was a good time. But quickly those meetings would turn into husband bashing. And I was like, oh, this isn't good. This is how dumb are our husbands? And so when I got a small group in my church and I got around other people that were like, we actually want to be married and we want it to last and we want God in the center. I just left feeling more settled and less angsty. And so I started paying attention to that feeling. And I told my girls that I'm like, after someone's been at our house, can you be yourself? And did they bring joy to the room or did y'all talk about Jesus? And so all those things matter. And it's not an overnight thing, but you start finding your people one at a time and going, okay, when I leave that situation, I've been myself and I feel like we've drawn each other closer to Jesus. Okay, tell me about conflict. This is something moms deal with a lot, is their daughters are in conflict. You weren't at the school, so you don't know who was the butt and who, it's like your daughter could have been the actual situation. And so there's times I know when my girls were little that I was involved. I called the mom, you get involved. And then there's times where you're like, you got to work this out. And so how do we deal with conflict? Just women in general. Have you had a hard time with that? Any tips on conflict? It's a big topic.
Totally. I mean, anytime you put any woman of any age, 80, 20, or even men actually cause conflict too, for the record. I think women get the bash for that. I'm like, I've been in friend groups where the guys cause the drama. And I'm like, wait a second. I think, so there's different kinds of conflicts. I've seen myself cause it where I have to also ask for forgiveness. I think asking for forgiveness and being humbled regularly will help you, even when you do something little, because it's easy to be like, well, it wasn't that big of a deal. We could just brush it off and move on. But asking for forgiveness regularly is a way to seek humility regularly, which will help you and create a foundation for the friendship where y'all can confess each other's sins. And so there was a time when I was in Orlando and I acted out of insecurity financially. It was classic roommate drama for girls get into. I'm sure all the college moms know. There's all, it's kind of fend for yourselves. And I tried to take one of my friend's roommates after I was moving out to be in my house. Anyways, all I have to say is I finally had to confess to my friend, I did that out of financial fear. That was definitely my worst sin. I did not act great. Take your time. And we were able to move on it because I had to explain and humble myself to explain the reasoning. And that's true with any conflict. You're going to find out what explains it, but it doesn't mean it excuses it. So that includes with your sins too. Share what explains why you did what you did and even kind of debrief with God in prayer. But understand that doesn't excuse your sins. And that's even for conflict. I always say to young girls, give grace, but not excuses. You're called to forgive people. But the Bible also says, like a dog goes back to its vomit, so do you, and you repeat it's your vomit. When you go back, I always tell it to girls, if you go back to that guy over and over again, God's I give you your sign. I never asked you to forgive him. And girls will say, I'm giving grace because they want so bad to hold on to that. I'm like, no, you're giving excuses. And same with friendships. If you constantly have had a consistent reminder that this person in your life is causing disagreement, isn't bringing out your best, then you have to walk away. And when I moved to Atlanta, there was like, I'm obviously going to say this very like broadly. There was this girl in this friend group I really wanted to be a part of, and it was the Cossack friend group. And there was a girl in there who just like lied. And even like, it's like that happens in like middle school.
Yeah,
and then it happens as you get older. That person who exaggerates everything and it doesn't add up. And I'm the type of person who my biggest pet peeve is like lying, especially to like seem cool. And so I'm like calculating this. And then I told someone, I'm like, I don't believe this girl. And that was my sin. Like, I'm sitting there, I'm gossiping. I'm saying, this doesn't make sense. And the truth is, I later found out that, yes, I was right. She was lying. But I had to walk away from that friendship, and I got busted for gossiping about her. And I had to walk away because at the end of the day, if I am so torn up that I'm causing a sin, then I just need to not hang out with her. Like, I was making it worse by still keeping her in my life. Like, all I had to do was decide, hey, I'm going to move on to a different friend group or friends in general. And so I think also realizes what causes the conflict. Is this person, like, is the reason that y'all are sinning and talking about each other just because it's not a compatibility fit? Then you need to walk away because you're just going to bring each other's worst selves out in this.
So good.
And that's what you can handle.
I love it.
And then also conflict in general, like, God is a God of peace, not confusion. Sometimes with conflict, you have to seek clarity in these conversations, especially with a good lifelong friend. Like when you are assuming something, I even have remember like story in college where I saw all my friends were in a group chat without me in my room, my house. I started bawling. I started thinking of all the times my past friendships have done that. I approached my friend. She goes, Grace, we were trying to plan you a surprise half birthday party. Like, look at the text. It was around Mardi Gras. You're from New Orleans. We don't ever see you for your birthday. And I just assumed the worst. I was bawling like as a 20-year-old. And that was such a lesson for me of, okay, you can't just really jump to conclusions. You have to jump to prayer and jump to prayerful conversations with people.
Yes.
And so when it comes to your friends in your life, you have to assume the best and bring it to them and explain like, hey, this is what's confusing me. Because sometimes they'll be like, whoa. This is a whole different narrative that you're jumping to conclusions and you're not actually seeking wisdom. And so when it's conflict like that, you'll never regret a healthy conversation and bringing it to light.
Grace, y'all see why I'm obsessed with her and why we all need to follow her Instagram. And it's Jesus in you, but you have this balance of humility and wisdom that is crazy. Like it is so good. And I'm thinking when I'm podcasting, I don't know if you do this, but I'm thinking of the clip that I want to show to get people drawn into the whole conversation. There's only been like 8. I'm like, just your way with words is so good. I want to give y'all one more thought on conflict, and you talked on it, but we call it in our house owning your piece of the pie. We didn't come up with it, but it's like they would say, no, they did this. And I'm like, there has to be a percentage. There has to be a sliver that was on you. And if you start with that, and I even got in a conflict on behalf of my daughter with another mom, and it started nasty. And I was so hurt. And I was like, if I go back in the way I preach and say, hey, I can see where this felt really wrong and this came across the wrong way. I'm so sorry. Will you forgive me? And then that opened her to say, you know what? Will you forgive me for that? And then all the like swords went down, the tension went down, and we worked through it. But I think if you come at it with like, you did this, and this, it's just the natural defense for anybody. It's just to be like, well, go right at it. So you're so on. And I think it's helpful for us as women and raising girls and boys to say, like, what's your piece of the pie? Start with that and go in. And you may not get the response you want. I don't know. But you did your part to say, like, Jesus, where do I need to own it? Kind of thing. Okay.
I love that you said that too. You did your part. Sorry, I have to speak on how good that was. Because I think sometimes your biggest fear right now, when I have these conflicts, I don't want to look pathetic. I don't want to look weird. And that's not from the Lord. Like that is a lie that is stopping me from having true relationships. And so if the worst thing you do is you start an apology and that person doesn't reciprocate it, you still did you had Jesus in you. Like you had humility, you had love. You don't need to feel pathetic for trying to be a good friend.
Yeah, I love it. Hey, also side note, when you go speak to Auburn, I'm going to need the dates. And then I'll just show up like a creeper and be like, hey, Ella, I don't know what you're doing tonight, but I'm going to hang out with Grace and I'll just show up.
Or we got to go to Chuck's or what is it? Irritable or the jump like a truck. Have you been to that dumpling place?
No, I'm so old. I'm like, Amsterdam? Is that still around?
I know your daughter's. I've never been that, but the dumpling place is like Irritable Bow, which is a horrible name. But their Instagram is dumpling a truck. Someone took me once. I think about it all the time. You don't know the menu till the day of. They have different dumplings.
Okay, you've had Tumor's Lemonade, right?
Yes, I have had that.
Okay.
It was really
so the
sweet.
family that owns that is their son is going to Auburn and they live here in Dallas. And so we are fired up. I'm cool. So we're like trying not to show up on every weekend. But okay, where was I going? Okay, so this book, we talked about it before we got on, The Better Friend, 12 Truths to Shift from Shallow and One-Sided Connections to Vibrant Friendships. It just came out this week, but you wrote it for what age in mind? Older girls, but I think any age girl can learn from this, whether you're reading it as yourself or the mom to get being a better friend and understand Jesus as your friend, and then you have language to talk to the younger girls about it. What was in the age group in mind as you wrote it?
I always like create like a person in mind. Like I think of someone I know personally, and I'm like, this is that. So I would say the age group in mind was like post-grad 25, but I know it'll be also great for college girls. And I know it'll be also great for even older high school preparing to meet new friends and feeling excluded. And I love that you said for moms, because I think moms would get truth from it. And like you said, it would help them communicate it with any age. And I lead a 6th grade Bible study at my church. And so they're funny. They don't fully understand my career. And so even like they were like, oh, wait, they literally opened my book and they're like, it's good, but it's a little cheesy. And I'm like, okay, guys, way to humble me. Like
middle schoolers are brutal.
They're brutal. But it's been so good for me to like be active in my church in a way that stretches me. That isn't what I'm good at. I'm like, I can't rely on like getting influencer PR and be like, I have drug outfit. They do care about that, but they don't care. Anyways. But all that to say is, I think even if like middle school moms are listening to this, I understand those issues, and it's nothing new under the sun. It's the same issues that you're dealing with, they're dealing with, and this puts it into like words that they maybe understand. You could get truth from it, and then you could share it as they grow up. And it also give you a way to be prepared for what they're going to feel. And I will say to all my moms, I'm not the one to give you mom advice, but I will say the way that you act as a friend, they're watching. They're watching how you talk about your other friends. They're watching how you care. If your friend's sick and if you're making her a meal, they're seeing that. They notice these things more than you realize. And so you being a good friend, like you being a good wife, you talking about people in love, like that impacts them more than you realize.
Yeah, I agree. Hey, let's end here. I want to share about some friends I love, and I'm not going to say them by name because I'll leave somebody out, but think as I'm talking that one friend who's being a great friend to you right now and what you appreciate about her. You don't have to name her by name, but so I was thinking as I'm older and as I just want to sit in my house, my low maintenance friends are where it's at because they know me. And most of these people, I've got one in Atlanta and many in Atlanta, Orlando, and they're just all over, but I've known them for years and they know my heart and they assume the best, like we talked about. Like I can come in 3 months later and they're not like, where have you been? Why haven't you reached out to me? They're not picky. They're just like, how are you? What can I do to support you? And so as a grown woman, I'm like, it is so freeing to have people that just like know who you are and don't require things and don't keep points and keep score. And so I appreciate so many of my friends that have stepped up that way because the pleaser in me wants everyone to feel loved and special. And I've just stopped worrying about it. And because we're grown adults and we can just do what we can do in the time we're given.
That's so good. I love loving these friendships. That's so true.
Yes. Tell me about some of yours.
I have this one friend that comes to mind and she's going through like a breakup right now in her 20s, like classic. And I saw her in Dallas when I was there for work and we got like sushi. And it's just the fact that like, caring for her well in that, but she still cares for me while she's going through that. And I have to be like, no, we're talking about you now. Like, you've had a hard week. Let's talk about you. And I just think, and she's my friend who will send me the funniest TikToks, memes, reels, and she cares so well for my life, even when she's going through something hard. And
that's good.
So it's been important for me to try to show up for her right now. But she's just one of those rare friends in long distance too, where we're not going to be able to talk every day on the phone, but when we do, we have to quickly get to the meat real quick, and we do. And so
I love that. Yes, memes are the foundation of vibrant friendships these days.
A good little reel that's hilarious that makes you laugh. Oh, I'm like, always share it with me, friends. Like, yes, I may have already seen it, but share it again so I can get it.
Yes, send it to me. Hey, I love you. I'm so proud of you. You're like a little sister to me, and I don't even, not that close to you, but like I am cheering you on, and your work is fantastic. And just keep going while my kids are in college because I want them to be in your audience one day. So thanks for being here.
I can't wait to hopefully meet your daughter if I ever go to Auburn again, which I always go to Auburn. So
I'll make sure you do. I'll make sure you do. All right. Thank you, friend.
I hope you enjoyed this episode of Pardon the Mess. As always, we've got more encouragement and resources over at christianparenting.org. And you can also stay connected with us on social media at Pardon the Mess. And if you like this episode, I'd love for you to do two things. Press follow on whatever podcast platform you love, and also be sure to leave a rating so other parents can find us. Remember, you're never alone in this beautiful mess of parenting.